Hope everybody's fine this evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. Agenda item 2.1, adoption of the agenda for the January 23rd, 2018 regular meeting of council. And the recommendation is that the agenda for January 23rd, 2018 meeting of council be adopted as amended to include the following items. Item 8.5, report regarding Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Emergency Operations Centers and Training. And item 8.6, report regarding proposed development permit for convenience store and gas station with a variance. Motion, please. Salt and Torgerson. Are there any further amendments? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 3.1, adoption of the minutes of the previous regular meeting of council. And the recommendation is that the minutes of January 9, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. Motion, please. Okay, Torgerson and Salt. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 4.1 rather, we have Rashmi Narayan, Housing Committee update and request. Okay, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Rashmi Narayan, and I'm from Valemount, and I'm here tonight with Riyad Kankel and Shirley McKillop, both from Valemount. We are members of the Housing Committee, and we are here to make a presentation to Valemount to Council to give an update on what we've been doing, as well as to make a request. First, some background.
I'm trying. There we go.
Okay. Next one. First, maybe that's okay.
Want me to go back?
Yeah. First, some background. So in 2015, Council approved the development of the Valemount Affordable Housing Needs and Assessment Study. One of the recommendations that Council approved from staff was engaging community stakeholders. And as a result, the Housing Committee had its first meeting in January 2017, a year ago. The committee has 10 members from diverse backgrounds. They include a retired realtor, a property manager, notary, real estate developer, members from the social and business sectors, 2 members from housing organizations, a former manager of an affordable housing organization, as well as a council member. So one of our first tasks was to define affordable housing. And affordable housing is not social housing. As per the Government of Canada and many agencies that fund affordable housing, housing is considered affordable if shelter costs, including utilities, account for less than 30% of before-tax household income. Riyad, you have some stories to share.
In our meetings, various stories came up, and so the committee asked me to share a couple. So the problem isn't just affordable housing, it's housing overall for Valemount. There's a shortage of housing for people who want to relocate to Valemount, who may not want to necessarily buy right away. Some people move here for a lifestyle change, but they want to test the waters first. There are almost no vacancies when they want to move here. In my current position, I can honestly say at my place of work, we've had candidates for management positions who choose not to relocate here simply because there's nowhere for them to live. They can't find suitable housing. We had a manager a few years ago who actually had to live in the campground for 3 months out of the back of her truck because she couldn't find a suitable place to live. On more than one occasion, I've had people staying in my basement until they can find a permanent home. And I know of a teacher who had to live in a fifth wheel after locating here. So there's people from all levels of society that are looking for housing. So when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about affordable housing, but also just housing in general. I think the stories are endless, and I'm sure most people probably in this room have a story or two that they could also share that they've experienced something along these lines as well. Okay, back to Rashmi.
So we want to share some key findings from the Affordable Housing Needs and Assessment Study. This was prepared using 2011 census data as well as 2013 tax filer data. In terms of affordability in Valemount, we have 95 households, about 20%, who have difficulty with affordable housing. Of these, 60 households have a core housing need. That is, they are spending between 30 and 49% of their income on housing. 35 households have a severe housing need and spending 50% or more of their income on housing. The median income, why this is important. Although housing prices in Valemount are lower than in other communities, our prices are an issue for locals, and this is why. The average couple in Valemount earned 11% lower than their provincial counterpart, while the average lone parent family earned 24% less than their provincial counterpart. And who is affected the most? The target population likely is workers in the service industry, retail, accommodation, food service, jobs, arts, entertainment, and recreation, as well as entry-level administrative positions across various sectors. They include families with children, particularly single mothers and grandmothers. And the number of people with below average wages and salaries increased by 100% between 1996 and 2011 in Valemount. So the study also looked at ownership. In 2011, as many as 118 homes, over 20% in Valemount, were owned by recreational homeowners and property investors. And this is a 142% increase from 2001. Reimer will continue with some information from what our subcommittees have been doing.
Okay, I will change the slide.
Let's just go on.
So the data collection subcommittee gathered information manually in order to try to get current, up-to-date information. They literally drove around town with a map and counted actual properties. It's not perfect, but we believe that the data may be more accurate, or at least as accurate as some of the old census data that we tend to rely on. So this chart that you're looking at here shows that although there are more residential lots with buildings than without, those lots without buildings cover a greater area than those with buildings. Change slide. This next slide shows the number and percentages of lots in all zones owned by Valemount residents versus non-residents. As you see, the other category, or there's the other category on there as well, and that's for government buildings, parks, that sort of thing. So you can see there definitely Valemount residents have a higher level of ownership, but we're still sitting at almost 35% of non-residents that own property in Valemount. So our next slide. So in this slide, we look at one of the measures for home affordability. The price of a home shouldn't be more than 3 times your gross household income. So the ratio shouldn't be higher than 3. As you can see from this table, the ratio has been increasing significantly since 2000. The 2017 BC assessment numbers indicate that residential properties have gone up an average of 21% since 2016. Vacant lot prices have increased significantly by around 50% in that 1 year as well. So we know that, or we also know that incomes have not increased at that rate. So now we're looking at ratios that are much higher than the 4.66 that we were looking at in 2016, and we believe that it will continue to grow. The Zoning and Bylaw Subcommittee created a summary of bylaws to look at lot size, dwelling size, primary use, and accessory uses. A copy of that spreadsheet is available to council and staff tonight, along with our presentation slides. While reviewing the zoning bylaws, we did meet with village staff, SAO Gord Simmons, CAO Adam Davey, Corporate Services Clerk Carleena Shepherd, Building Inspector and Fire Protection Officer Dean Schneider, EDO Silvio Gislamberti, and also with Councillor Peter Reimer. After consulting with village staff, the subcommittee compared our bylaws with 2 other communities, that was Nelson and Fernie. And based on that information, we submitted 3 recommendations to Council in October of 2017 to encourage the creation of more housing options by simplifying some of the zoning bylaw requirements. As of today, we're still waiting to hear back from staff and Council on that. So we also had a society subcommittee, and the purpose of this subcommittee was to determine who would take on the task of organizing and managing affordable housing for Valemount. And we found that the only society with a mandate for housing was not in a position to expand its services. In the meantime, Valemount College identified a need for student housing, and as a result, the Valemount Affordable Rentals Society was formed and is now working on a project to develop student housing. Their mandate also includes the provision for affordable housing for low and moderate income residents of Valemount. The Housing Committee itself received presentations from the following. City of Fernie Councillor Ange Qualitza presented on municipal bylaws and planning for housing. She shared some of the challenges faced by Fernie as well as some of the solutions that they are considering to address these challenges. And although Fernie is larger than Valemount, they have faced some of the challenges that we're about to face, so we felt that we could really learn from them, and we found some of the comparisons were very valuable. Mark Brunton, manager for affordable housing from Columbia Basin Trust, presented about how CBT can help and what the steps are to receiving funding and support in creating housing. We also received a presentation from Councillor Hollie Blanchette, who shared information that she collected at the UBCM Affordable Housing session. And now I will ask Shirley McKillop to share the final part of our presentation.
So, Council has supported us in many ways right off the get-go. First of all, Council undertook the Housing Needs and Assessment Study. It was an important jumping-off point, even though the data was based on 2011, and it provided our committee with a lot of usable data. Secondly, the Council created this committee, and one can only assume that this was in recognition of the fact that Valemount has an affordable housing problem. And thirdly, Council has allocated staff resources, namely Silvio, to whom we owe just a ton of thanks for all his work and assistance with our meetings. So for a little background, at this time, all levels of government in BC have acknowledged that there is a housing shortage across the province. It's not just us, if not the whole country. In response to this shortage, Columbia Basin Trust, BC Housing, and even CMHC have and are providing grant money to assist local communities in building affordable housing. The time to take advantage of these grants and loans is now. How long they'll last is anybody's guess. I'm thinking probably a couple more years, and then that'll be it. In order to take advantage of the grant money and low-interest loans, there are some requirements that must be met. We must, number one, have a non-profit society or a housing authority to be responsible for the construction and management of these premises. There currently has been formed the Valemount Affordable Rental Society in conjunction with the soon-to-be-open college. However, at the current time, this society has the primary focus of student housing. They may be willing to look at affordable housing in the future after they have dealt with their student housing. The second requirement is either land that can be dedicated to affordable housing, or the money with which to buy this land. Land gives the society or authority the necessary ownership in whenever projects will be funded. So here comes this is what we want. At this point, we have 2 really important requests of Council. One, land. We're asking Council to consider the idea of making land available in principle. We're not at this time asking for a donation of land or anything. We just want a commitment in principle that the Council's behind us, and when the time comes, there will be land available. There are many different ways that council can provide land, and these ideas can be discussed at a later date. We're asking that council make land available in principle, the where, the size, and the how to be determined later. Secondly, we're asking council to make a resolution, and this resolution is to commit, to allow our committee to apply to Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives for grant money to hire a consultant. This consultant would assist council and the committee to decide which parcel of land would be the most suitable for the development of an affordable housing project. We would request that council pass a resolution to this effect to allow the committee to proceed in the to apply for this grant. And we would like to thank Mayor Townsend and the members of council for listening to our presentation and for considering our proposals. So thank you very much. And at this time, we can take any questions there might be.
Council, do you have any questions? At this time, Councillor Torgerson.
Thank you very much for the very informative delegation. The City of Fernie and the Fernie and the presentation by Councillor Carleena, what kind of highlight the challenges and solutions that they kind of experienced?
I think Riette's more capable than I am in answering that.
You can go ahead, Rashmi.
So-
Rashmi's our chair.
No, I
Well
remember
done.
some more. They have some bylaws in terms of, so one of the things they have is to promote, the OCP is quite detailed in terms of a section for affordable housing. It runs into 2 or 3 pages. And in that, one of them is they have, in any new development, they allow 15% of the housing in a new development has to be allowed for affordable housing. So, and this is non-negotiable. This is just part of, you know, if you are a developer and coming to town, that's what you do. They have smaller lot sizes. They don't have any restrictions on home sizes, and they just want to see more density. So this was another one, and they're more flexible about having secondary suites and as well. So these are some of the things that I just remember off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Council? Councillor Salt.
Thank you very much for the update. I really appreciate it, and really appreciate all the statistics, being a numbers girl, and a bit of an eye-opener too. I mean, we realize and think we know these things, but when you actually see the hard numbers down in paper, it's a little startling sometimes. So thank you very much for all of the hard work and legwork that you went out and manually did as well to bring this to us. Thank you.
I personally was shocked when I first read the numbers.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No.
No questions? No questions? No? Okay. At this point, I just wanted to ask, do you have any principal investors who are looking to? No? Okay.
Like I mentioned, we kind of have to start with having either the society or an authority before we can do any of that.
Okay.
And if we were to have land available, then that would put us, or put whoever was going to manage this into a stronger position to apply for grant funding from CBT. CBT has a fair bit of grant funding available.
Yes.
And also to potentially apply for a loan through BC Housing.
Well, we did have a teleconference call. Actually, it was Silvio set us up so that we did it all by Skype with Mark Brenton several months ago. And I know that CBT has been assisting in various municipalities. I just don't, they've never given us all of their terms for giving grants. Okay.
When we also did a Skype with them at one of our meetings, and I asked the question of, you know, like, what do we have to have? And then I said, if we had land available. And he told us in the meeting that the most common way is a community has the land available, CBT will provide grant money for startup, and then BC Housing with a mortgage, which the terms on the mortgage are exceptional. It doesn't have to be repaid for the first couple of years, and then once the property's up and going and collecting rent, it can go from there.
And who would be the mortgagee?
Whether it's the housing authority or the nonprofit, and that's one of the pieces that we say we still need to identify.
Okay. Because I still think of someone being a principal and an investor, and
It wouldn't be an individual
It would-
necessarily.
okay.
Normally, it would be an organization of some sort.
okay.
May I just kind
Yes,
of join
Sylvia.
in being also on the housing
Yes.
committee? Your question is an important one. I think at this time here, we do not know yet all these kind of details, and it would be just a starting point. So if council says, in principle, we agree in the future to maybe find some piece of land to make it available and so on, all these kind of terms, we need still to define those. And of course, that's where we will also talk to BC Housing, Columbia Basin Trust. They can help us to find all these kind of different governance models. And when you mention also investors, of course, there's also the possibility to have a mixed project where you also have probably a potential developer who could be part. And as you know, privately also we have spoken to some just to find out if there's some interest. And in the future, once that type of society or a housing authority, once that's formed, and once all those kind of details are in place, then we can really look into many different options and then find which is the best alternative for the village, of course. But right now, we don't have many of these kind of answers. But for sure, we know there are many models where you've got also private-public partnerships, and where there's more and more developers now that are looking into housing with different type of approaches. And the one thing that also we talked at one of the last meetings that's very, very important is also the mixed housing systems. Of course, we will be looking from rental units for seniors to students to single households, all the way to also co-op type of housing for young families, people who want to work and play and live here. So I think, but we do not know yet the details. So this is really a starting point.
Silvio, if you don't mind answering a question for me, does BC Housing, do they give the money for the buildings?
Yes. Here, and I just kind of read some documents in the past few days. The most important thing is once we've got some of those initial factors that are clear, land, where the design, the concept, then you start working on a business plan. And the business plan is really to check what are the capital investment costs, then what are the operational costs, and then of course in the operational costs you have to check what are the revenues, for instance, from the rental units, and to what level do you have to push up and down, either initially the capital costs, get more grant money, have more equity like the land, and then later on, when you do that kind of business plan, you can see if that project is also affordable and feasible, because of course, over a period of 25 to 35 years, that's how BC Housing would the terms for the mortgage. And then of course you can make those calculations and see if through rentals and other services, if you can pay back the principal and of course the interest. But there are many models. There are of course templates for this kind of type of business plans for housing, and also Rashmi had sent me a couple days ago the one from Terrace and so on, so where they really give you almost a whole template, you can put in all the numbers and then see if it's feasible. And to come to a conclusion, of course, the equity in this case, if the village would be willing to put in 2 or 3 acres of land, I'm just kind of showing the number right now, that would make a tremendous difference, because there are many situations where housing societies or housing authorities, they even have to buy the land, so they also have to find the money for buying the land and so on. So I think the potential is that it could be a very feasible project, and especially, and here I'm jumping ahead a little bit, especially also if maybe we come up with a very a project that has mixed housing and probably also maybe with some parts with a private-public type of partnership. So it can become very feasible. And we do not know yet, when you ask who would be responsible, most likely would be then that society. It could be also a authority formed by the municipality. And also to find all these kind of different governance structures, that's where we will talk to Columbia Basin Trust and get help from them and find all these kind of different models. But again, if council can support the concept, and we're saying just in principle, because all the details, they will be worked out in the future, that would be a great start.
Thank you. You know, as an employee since 1994, that the village does not have the resources.
No.
Yes, and in fact, last Friday in Prince George, all of the North Central Local Government Association, First Nations chiefs, mayors, chairs, regional districts, and CAOs had a day-long meeting. And it was the mayor of a city who said that even though they have industrial taxes, property taxes, which we don't have. In Valemount, approximately 70% of our property tax revenue is residential, and approximately 30% is business. We have no industrial tax base. And in fact, I'm told that for the taxes that we collect, all we get to keep is $680,000 to run the village. And if we didn't have a provincial revenue sharing and other grants, we wouldn't even be able to cover public works. So this is, it kind of straps us as to what we can do. But I should like to see if council has any other thoughts or questions. Yes.
Back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, the village worked with the Senior Citizens Housing Society and BC Housing by donating land
And
for
we
them
have-
to expand.
That's correct.
So isn't this
Councillor
kind of the similar kind of idea? This is a committee of council
Okay.
that we have here, and
Yes.
they're asking,
Yes, but that was land that came available from unpaid taxes. And we worked with the province of British Columbia, and it was Rich Coleman, who was the minister in charge of seniors housing, that he came forward and the province paid for everything that's there, and the land only belonged to the village of Valemount for unpaid taxes. So if we have anything like that that comes up, yes.
Do we not have a large parcel that we could, in principle, give a portion of? But we don't have to give the whole parcel, but just the 1 or 2 acres.
Okay.
Can I clarify, we're not asking for a donation of land. It's just that there would be land available and the financial terms can be negotiated. So it's not to give away land, because if when we look at approaching funding agencies like CBT, CMHC, and BC Housing, they want to know what the municipality is bringing to the table. And it could be subsidized, a lower rate for the land. It could be land in the name of the village of Valemount and a long-term lease, and the money going back to the village. So we're not asking for free land. We're not asking for any commitment in terms of the financial component for the land. We're just saying that just the land be available, like it's a partnership, and the details can be worked out as we know more about what the funding agencies need and what kind of investment is needed and whether we can do it at all. And it might be something we might have to say it's not possible. But it's to have a conversation with the funding agencies like CBT. They need to know what is the municipality bringing to the table. And that's sort of talking to many funding agencies. That's what they've asked. They've said. So that's why we approach you guys to ask about land. And it's definitely not to donate land. Just to be clear, we're not asking for that.
Yeah. Councillor Reimer, you wanted to say something?
Well, I'd like to suggest that, I'd like to make the motion that first of all, the delegation be received.
Yes.
And which is on our agenda.
Okay, moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Torgerson, that the delegation be received. All in favor? Carried.
And secondly, again, I'd like to thank the committee for all the hard work that has been going on over the last year. And I would like to, out of the discussion tonight, put on the floor a motion that that we make available, in principle, a portion of land that we do own over on the Ash Street land in order to develop some kind of affordable housing project, as been indicated. So I'd like to make that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Blanchette. Is there any discussion? Councillor Torgerson?
A question for the councillor. Do we limit that just to that lot? There's parcels behind Johnny Old Park, about 1.3 hectares. There's a double lot on Ash Street that we own. There's a lot on 6th Avenue that the village owns. Even that double lot on Ash, probably put 12 dwelling units in there with the appropriate rezoning. But do we want to limit it just to the Ash Street property?
Madam Mayor, the reason that I suggested that property is that there's a little bit more land there to work with, rather than limiting it to a size of a lot or two. And again, it's an approval in principle rather than selecting a specific portion of property. And what comes out of that could be, is anybody's guess at this point, but at least we're making a start.
And I agree, Councillor Reimer, that the property does not have to be designated tonight. It would be important for everyone to go and look at these properties and make a decision then as to which would be the most appropriate. Okay, Councillor Blanchette.
If we agree with the CBT funding, the consultant would be a good person to say, hey, this is the best or not.
So that can be determined at a later date?
Correct.
Yes, and they're not asking for a designation of which property tonight anyway?
Correct.
Okay. All right, is there any more discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your diligence and your hard work. Thanks.
Thank you.
They had a second request on hold.
Oh, sorry.
For the CBT funding?
The second request was to make an application to the Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives in order to
proceed, we require a resolution.
Sorry, I was looking at a different agenda item. All right, so what is council's wish then? Make a motion for Councillor Blanchette and seconded by Councillor Torgerson that that they be given authority to explore grants and funding options with Columbia Basin Trust. Is that correct? Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Agenda item 8.1, BC Air Access Program. We have a recommendation that council approve staff to apply for the BC Air Access Program for rehabilitation to the Valemount Airport lighting system. And should the grant be awarded, that council approve available funds located in the general surplus account dedicated to airport improvements up to a maximum of $40,000. And for council, could I have a motion, please? Blanchette and Reimer. For council's information, the lights are operable for about 10 years, and this is the 12th year, I'm told, that these lights have been since they were installed. And it's not, if you have any further questions, the administrator can answer.
It's like getting extra life out of a hot water heater.
But it's especially important for safety issues, air ambulance, etc. Okay, so Is there any discussion or questions that you have of the administrator regarding this? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda 8.2, December 2017 accounts payable report, that council accepts the December 2017 accounts payable report for information purposes. Motion, please. Okay, Reimer and Blanchette. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda item 8.3, Visitor Center Operations Staff Report. Recommendation that council accepts the final report submitted by Adventure Management for the Visitor Center Operations. Motion, please. Torgerson and Salt. Any discussion? I should like to comment of the excellent service that we have received over the years from Wendy Dyson and her adventure business. What was the name of it? Sorry?
Adventure Management.
That's right. Adventure Management. It was always a success, and I think it's remarkable to look at the percentage increases over the last several years in the visitors to the center. And in fact, there was a 25.8% increase in 2017 from the year before, and a 16.5% increase in the center visitor numbers since 2016, and number of buses, 132, a 17.9% increase. And the money that the revenue that was created, as Ms. Dyson points out, they had very good salespeople there and very interested people, as well as very friendly and inviting to the tourists. So, is there any questions prior to calling for a vote? Yes, Councillor Reimer.
Just a comment. I like some of the recommendations out of there, especially in relation to designating some other parking for the buses and the larger vehicles.
Okay. Do you have any comment on that?
I do not.
You do not, okay. Are there any further comments? Okay, all in favor, please, of final report. Carried. Agenda item 8.4, and this is with respect to the North Central Local Government Association resolution proposal for highway rescue costs. Recommendation that council sponsor the following resolution to submit for consideration at the 2018 NCLGA convention, and if approved, to be submitted to the 2018 UBCM convention. This resolution is being amended right now with the corporate manager from the regional district, as well as our CAO. They'll be talking further tomorrow. I took it forward to the regional district of Fraser Fort George board meeting on Thursday, and it was supported unanimously. And I even told the administrator earlier today, I said my motion was seconded by the second vice president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. There are many municipalities who they provide the search and highway rescue cost, but they are reimbursed by the province because those are provincial highways. And that's what our resolution will state. And it's going to be a combined resolution with the Village of Valemount and the Regional District of Fraser Fort George. And in fact, the board voted unanimously in favor of a combined resolution. So I think our recommendation is that we just continue to sponsor the following, not this particular resolution, but one that will be composed tomorrow.
Your Worship, you can even just say within the intent.
Okay, so with that intent. Okay, so Councillor Reimer, and Blanchette. Are there any discussions or questions? Councillor Salt.
Just really like to thank CEO and Davey and the regional district staff and yourself and the regional district board for this. I really appreciated the background information and some of the past history resolutions. And again, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, I think it was 2001 and 2008 or 9.
That's right, Your Worship.
That similar resolutions were taken forward. But I said it's a new government and patience and perseverance, and you get your way. Because there are other areas within the regional district that they get reimbursed by Emergency BC. And I don't think that highway rescue, the cost should be borne by the local taxpayer. Okay, thank you. All in favor, carried. 8.5, Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Emergency Operations Centers and Training. The recommendation is that council approve staff to apply for the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Emergency Operations Centers and Training stream up to $25,000 for the purpose of purchasing a generator for the municipal office, which would be the Emergency Operations Center. Okay, Blanchette and Salt. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Agenda 8.6, proposed development permit for a convenience store gas station. Recommendation that staff be authorized to issue development permit 07-17 with a variance to support the development of a commercial retail space to include a convenience store and gas station at 1400 17th Avenue, legally described as Block C of the southeast quarter of District Lot 7354, Caribou District, except Plan 19779 and PGP 48091. This development permit is subject to the following: approval of engineered drawings, water and sanitary sewer connections, and on-site access road by Village Public Works Superintendent and/or village-appointed engineer. B, conditions put forth by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. The referral response from MOTI is attached to and forms part of this development permit. C, exterior lighting conditions that comply with the conditions of the Village of Valemount official community plan. 2, that as a condition of the issuance of development permit 0717, council requires a security deposit from the proponent in the amount of 120% of the cost of landscaping and paving, as calculated by the proponent's architect or surveyor. The proponent will submit the deposit to the village through either an irrevocable letter of credit or cash at their option prior to receiving a building permit. What is council's wish?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Councillor Torgerson, seconded by Councillor Reimer. Is there any discussion?
That's the rock, it's already zoned highway commercial.
That's right. Yeah, the zoning doesn't have to be amended. Yes, Councillor.
I'd just like to mention that we do have some letters with some thoughts and some concerns.
This is not the public hearing, though.
Oh,
They should be brought forward at the public hearing?
Mr. Worship, so council receives all of these letters, but keep in mind when the rezoning process goes through after this meeting, there'll be a public consultation process as well. Is that, perhaps to see if Ms. Shepherd has anything to add to that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Can you add to that?
If a rezoning process goes through, yes, there is a public consultation.
Okay.
For a process for a development permit, we're looking for compliance with the official community plan. We're already zoned highway commercial. We're already designated highway commercial in the OCP. So for a development permit, we're looking for the look and feel and other regulation in the OCP.
Okay.
When the time comes that we have to amend the zoning in some way, and we're asking for any kind of non-compliance with zoning, and we would like to change that, that's when the public consultation comes into place.
Okay. Thank you. It's for a public hearing, it's not at this point, because they're not, okay? They're not asking for any amendments to the OCP nor to the zoning.
yeah, no, it was my confusion.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Yes.
Not so much a question, I think Councillor Blanchette's maybe intent, and I think my intent, it would be that I'd like the people to know that we acknowledge receipt of their concerns and that I'm sure
That
they've been
staff will do
notified.
so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, sure.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Of course, the letters are circulated, whatever we receive in terms of concerns from residents, and as a part of the process, I do attach the concerns as a part of my minutes. So there is a process, and of course, everything's acknowledged. There's just not a public consultation at this point.
Thank you. All clear? Okay, all in favor then? Carried. Council reports, 10.1. We'll start with Councillor Blanchette.
I just had the housing meeting on the 18th.
Thank you. Councillor Reimer, have you been back long enough to...
It's as if I'd never left. I was getting emails and texts and everything thousands of kilometers away. It's amazing how technology moves to every part of the earth.
And you can't really have a vacation.
Well, it was a light. I highly recommend it, and it was an active experience. It takes you back to grade school and all the things that you learned, And yes, I did get back right into it at a Historical Society meeting last Thursday, as well as a Housing Committee meeting. And I'd like to make one more appeal for one more member of the board of the Historical Society, hopefully prior to Friday morning.
Okay. So we need...
All volunteers? Thank you very much.
Volunteers for the Historic Society.
One more.
One more. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Salt.
On Wednesday, January 10th, I attended my first Direct Heat Use Committee meeting, and it was very interesting, and they brought me up to speed quite quickly that night, and I look forward to continuing with them, and I'm sure council will see some updates from them in the future too, so it was very good. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Torgerson.
Wednesday the 17th, I had a meeting of the Board of VARDA. And they're always entertaining.
Of course. Thank you very much. Last week was a very busy week. There was the BC Resources Forum, and interrupted by the budget discussions with the Regional District of Fraser-Fort George on Wednesday afternoon, and all day Thursday, Regional District Fraser-Fort George board meetings. On Friday, we had the North Central Local Government Association First Nations chiefs, the mayors, the regional district chairs, and the CAOs for a meeting in the Civic Center in Prince George. And it was a very busy time. We also had Minister of Municipal Affairs, Selena Robinson, was there. And I have to look up her name. Judy Darcy, who's the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, and Jennifer Rice, the Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. They all made presentations. There were discussions with respect to an umbrella topic, social responsibility, and I don't think that Valemount had the same issues as the larger centres with respect to opioid crisis, and I believe that we are reconciled with our Simp Nation. We have a very good relationship with them. But there are other municipalities who don't. And we also had a special presentation from Mina Lawden, the Vice President of Public Affairs, Council of Forest Industries. And so the main topic at this time, of course, is still the softwood lumber issue and the disagreement between Canada and the United States. And it's primarily the forest industry leaders in the United States who are the ones who do not want to really come to an agreement. And I think this is about the third one in this century that we've been through these softwood lumber disagreements. So there was a lot of interesting discussion. And I want to say that my favorite presenter at the Resources Forum was the chief of the First Nations Assembly of Canada. And he speaks English and French and Cree, and who knows what else. But he did say that when economic development is planned in municipalities, if you work with the First Nations in your area, it's always going to be a success. So that's the one thing that I took away from him. Thank you. Motion to receive the council reports, please. Okay, Torgerson and Salt. All in favor? Carried. Agenda item 12.1, the project file tracker. Recommendation that the project file tracker be received. And I should like to commend Mr. Davey. I was looking at this very carefully and I thought, now we know precisely what is going on, what hasn't gone on, what should be going on, etc. So I want to commend you for that. Thank you very much. I don't know how long that took you to prepare, but we're certainly going to be really well informed now, up to date. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Worship.
Yeah. Okay. I would even take a motion then. I think we've got a mover and a seconder.
I do not have.
You do not? Okay. Torgerson and Salt, that the project file tracker be received, and with compliments to, I would like to amend that resolution with compliments to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Absolutely.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Public comment on items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. So it's time for public comment regarding items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. Okay. 15.1, notice to proceed to an in-camera meeting. Recommendation that council proceed to an in-camera council meeting for consideration of two items for section 91, C and K of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to labor relations or other employee relations, and K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Motion, please. Salt and Torgerson. All in favor? Carried. Well, that's not bad. 10 to 8.